Hello, this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Worth podcast. I am so excited that you're here for today's guest. I am bringing on my friend Victoria Fontana, and we had already started to talk, and we were so excited. I was like, okay, let's pause. I want you to hear what we're really so excited to be able to share with you. So, Victoria, thank you for joining me today, and I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah, we just started having this really delightful conversation about the collective energies, and we started to talk about the kind of like the ups and downs of the energy that's in our environments and how we are navigating through them. And it was just a really delightful conversation. So we paused it so that we could start recording and include everybody here on the podcast with us. So, Victoria, you just started to share something really insightful about when you're out there working and how when you walk into a room, you can feel all of the energies. And so I would love to continue on that.
Yeah. It's a tough time now, going through all these changes in the world, COVID era. You know, it, I when I so I was talking about working at Starbucks. I work at a coffee shop, part-time, fantastic benefits. And I can feel and see people's energy. It's so obvious to me that people are having a really hard time. And it's even before they say a word. It's before they interact with me. You could see the body language, but it's, to me as an empath, the feelings are very palpable. Like I can sense it. And especially even walking into the space with my partners, I can always tell when there's a collective energy of not having a good day. And so for me, I can easily allow myself to get dragged down, because, like I was saying, I can feel so much. But so I'm still practicing getting used to different techniques to try to, I'm calling it getting behind the thought, like recognizing, so being the observer and recognizing that I am not those thoughts. So when I see and feel that energy that doesn't feel good, that yucky energy, right? Walking into that space and it's like almost like this darkness, I realize these are they're just energies, and that they can change, right? All energy changes. That's life. And so when I realize that I am not that thought of, for example, what is everyone's problem? Why is it so heavy in here? Why is everybody in such a bad mood? Why is everybody being so nasty, right? You can get caught up in that. I realize I am not that, and I just let that thought be, and then eventually it goes away. That's the work of, have you heard of Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, his book?
Oh, yes. In fact, I have read it many years ago, but yes.
So yeah, so that I recommend that to anybody listening and watching. So that's a technique that I picked up from him, getting behind the thought.
Oh, I love that. One of them, I also have that similar feeling, especially over the well, of course, all last year, right, with the pandemic. And as I started to reintegrate last fall, now it's been well, it has been a year, I guess, since we started to re-engage. I have found that my personal energy has shifted since last year in how I am interacting with people. I have found that when I'm out in a general public area, is that I have to really prepare myself energetically. I run, because also empath and an energy worker, I run energy to actually kind of include myself in a like aura bubble, basically. Right. I run sacred soul alignments that kind of protect my energy, that only the light will come through. And I have to really keep myself grounded multiple times a day, multiple
Absolutely.
times a day, because today, good day, right? But also I've had to incorporate practices as well, right? Like I don't check my phone, I don't check my email because I may not have enough time to be able to recalibrate my own energy and any emotions that might come up. And so, uh, what other techniques are you using as you navigate some of these the dark? I would say some of the darker have the what's the word I want to use? Dense, more dense energies of people with the uncertainty and how we're so sensitive to it. What's another technique that you use when you find yourself there and it's your own energy, right? Like you're going through a life change. Um, how have you been able to recenter yourself, or do you allow yourself first to feel the feels?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I've been getting better at this. So I find myself now, I recognize when I feel the feels, the energy really does pass. I remember hearing people talk about how if you allow yourself to feel the pain, you will move through the pain. And at some point it felt impossible, and now I do actually just allow myself to sit with it, like literally like sit on the couch and sit with that
Mhm.
feeling,
Yeah.
like during the evening when it's quiet after my kids have gone to bed. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, but every time, that's when it's quiet, that's when all that stuff wants to come up and be dealt with. And that's when I literally sit with it and I feel it and I question it. So in questioning it, it allows me to like basically it's like I can hold it now. It's this malleable energy that now at that point when you are aware of it and you're questioning it, where does it come from? Why do I have it? Why am I feeling this pain? Is it that person's fault? Whatever the situation is, I am able to be aware of it. And in that awareness, that's when that energy is able to change into a higher vibration. Because the way I see it is, if when something feels painful, it's because it's this lower density energy that you're not allowing to come up to the surface, whether it's a trauma, something negative that's happened in the past, and you're constantly getting triggered in your day to day. It's painful when you go through it, and then it becomes more painful because you're suffering as you ignore it, right? I don't know if you've had that experience.
Yes.
So it turns into suffering. That's when it's really, really painful. So pain is good because pain is a signpost. So back to your question, I I sit with it and I question it, and then I also do. You were talking about a technique where you only let light in. So I know of this technique where you imagine yourself in an invisible bubble, so like a see-through bubble. You can make it as whatever size you want, and you imagine little holes in it, and only your light can go through, but nobody else's energy can come into yours. So it's this visual of being able to give your light to others, but you don't have to be affected. Especially as an empath, we tend to be very sensitive.
Yes. Yes. I practice that where I also have like um, a bubble around me, right? And I always think of the 70s. I'll show my age here, but there was this made for TV movie with John Travolta in it. He was super young, The Boy in the Bubble, right? And he had to stay in this bubble because he had some type of sickness. But I always had this visual of it. And one of the things I also run is called a white seamless suit. And so I always think of the new show, The Blue Men, the shoe, how they're in blue, but I think of that as all white.
Ah,
And with the energy work that I do, and that I can receive. Like if you're sending me love, I can feel your love and your intention. And so it's almost like the filter of filtering out. And of course, all of my love can go out. And it's remarkable, right? Whatever technique that we all use to be able just accept only that's for ourselves and our highest good. It's so remarkable how it can really shift how we're feeling and how we navigate through. Um, I know earlier too, we had touched on, I was doing the whole roller coaster thing with my hand, is that as I've navigated through like the podcast and having some pretty big life changes happen last year and then continually through this year, is the allowing those feels to happen. And like yourself, you are almost intentionally setting the time aside at night to deal with the feels, not deal with, but process through, honor them, not try to bury them. I've recently, because of these other life changes, have had really old buried stuff come up. And at first I had to examine, was this mine? Like, why is this coming forward 20 years later? And to be triggered and to allow myself the space to say, okay, you were going to go do this. I think you need to kind of stay home and just feel what this feels like. I don't want somebody to cheer me up on those days, right? I want to feel them. I want to release them from my body because I subscribe to the belief that our bodies hold on to the traumas. What are your beliefs around, you know, life experiences or traumas, and how does it really relate to the physical body?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. It's super deep. You know, so for me, I experienced a lot of trauma early on, and it continued into my adulthood, around some family members, without getting too personal. But it I, without realizing it, spent decades not feeling into what that was. So trauma would come up in patterns in my life. So I would get re-triggered by the trauma. So I would attract partners into my life who were really essentially a father figure. Like, they not a father figure, but they like were the trauma I experienced with my father and the trauma I experienced with my mother in other situations over and over and over again. And going through it, I had no idea there was a pattern, because what happens is we are constantly we're recreating situations where we can look at that trauma. And again, like I was saying before, to be able to transmute that, to turn that into something else. And so I was constantly being put in these situations with people and jobs, and feeling the same way and constantly blaming other people for it. So finally, in the year 2000, that's when I feel like my spiritual awakening started. I'm sure it started way earlier, but I saw like the something really changed at that point. I had a partner who was a vegan, and it encouraged me to change my diet. And in changing my diet, I was able to really feel a lot of pain at that point. But but I realized that I was feeling the same pain, but it was bigger because it's coming up to the surface, and I was able to deal with it at that point. I no longer was stuffing everything down. Not to say that I was really good at it at that point, but it was so at this point an 11-year process of dealing with things, stuffing down, letting it come up, dealing with it again, and going through this journey of feeling the physical aspect of the emotional pain, because everything physical starts out as emotion. That's what I believe. Okay. And being able to change my physical body first with it was vegetarianism. I didn't actually become a vegan, but veganism encouraged the vegetarianism. Feeling into that, being able to take care of my body better, becoming a runner and then becoming a meditator. I studied TM, practiced that. And that's when the pain really was like coming up full force. But because I was taking care of my physical body, I was able to transmute that. Um, and fast forward 11 years, it's been a journey of a lot of that kind of allowing the emotional to become physical. And whenever I would try to stuff it back down, it would come back up with a vengeance into physical illness. Um, and I believe that we attract, again, we attract the circumstances into our life to allow us to transmute that pain. And I think I attracted mold. I really did. I probably subconsciously encouraged myself to move into a home that had black mold on many, many surfaces behind walls. And it made me very ill. And that illness and Lyme disease allowed me to feel the pain, like get quiet with it and actually do something with it.
Yeah, that is really what a journey that you've experienced with that, and how it physically manifested, or even I've been changing the word manifesting lately in my vocabulary to co-creating.
Yeah, I like that.
Um, with how I've been switching. I've been reading a lot of Joe Dispenza, right, and doing one of his meditations now for quite some time over the last couple of months, and consistency has been my big theme, right? Consistent, going to get consistent on doing it every day because it makes such a difference in what energy, and that's probably what really kicked it off of really going, okay, I know I'm co-creating this. I've been manifesting for years, but how am I going to co-create the vision that I see to change, like what you're talking about, where you think that you kind of brought in the physical parts of it with the Lyme disease, the black mold in a house, and how we can stop those thought patterns so that we can um, have them come have them come up. Recently I had something come up about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I had this really old pattern come up. Somebody who had used to be in my life for a very long time. She was a pivotal person and had no idea in my interactions that I had so much a buried pain in. And and it really had me go back, like you're saying, and go back. And I had to look at what beliefs were these driving. How are these beliefs now showing? Why was it now time to take a look at something that I didn't even realize was such a big trigger point for myself? And so what I've noticed is that if I skip the meditation for the day, if I brush myself in my little routine that I've been establishing, that those feelings can get away. Just like when you walk into the Starbucks, when you can feel that like rush of this dense, darker type of energy where it starts to come over. And so um, I have learned that technique of just feeling the feels too. So um, in this, I'm really interested too, and I know that you work with women who are releasing decades old stories around their relationships so that they can actually thrive. I'm really curious about how do you witness or how do you hold the space for women, and how do they really even know? How would a woman know that she's holding these old stories?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that when we find that um, we're constantly being pressed against the same pattern, the same triggers over and over again, where we realize after a number of years that we've attracted the same partner, or we're constantly, we hate our work, right? Women, so I attract a lot of women that want to have a successful partnership, but they find themselves attracting the same kind of people, or they keep getting let go from work, or finding work that sucks the energy out of them. And so I think there comes a point where if you become conscious enough, you realize that there's you're getting triggered the same way over and over again. And I think it's at the point where someone becomes really tired of going through that is when they seek help. It's like when it gets painful enough, they say, okay, I don't want to deal with this anymore. It just becomes really difficult. And I think if you're not, if they didn't allow themselves to feel that pain, I don't think they would come to me. I don't think they would go to anybody for help.
Yeah.
So it's at that point that they can't deal with it anymore. And so they're looking to the outside for help. And I've heard people say, oh, you're a healer. You really are healing me. And I remind them, no, maybe I can heal, by what that means to me is transmuting, but really I'm here to encourage you to be able to become your own healer, because that's the secret sauce. I believe that's where the magic is. And I really don't, I'm still grappling with the idea of like, can a healer really heal somebody? I think they can help you. I think they can help you maybe clear some energy so that you can become your own self-sovereign healer. That's what I teach people, to be, to realize their own power inside, and everybody has that the energy to be able to heal themselves. And I teach alignment too.
I also subscribe to that belief that we all are healers. I think some of us have just practiced or have studied or have learned maybe techniques to be able to connect into it or to trust it. The trusting that we are able to do that.
Yeah.
And I know I've worked with many healers for myself, and they usually bring you back to your own innate value within yourselves. But it's just like doing anything, right? It's when you have that partner who can help you see some of your patterns, they can hold that space to where you may not feel so confident in it, or you may not trust your own intuition to be able to hold the space and kind of, bounce those thoughts that you're having off of people, off of somebody you can trust, right? Who's there. And so you must do that to have that, hold that space for them to be able to learn what's already inside of them.
Right. And so I find that holding the space becomes easy for them, because I attract women who really are a mirror for myself, and I see myself through them. And so then they can see themselves through me, because isn't that what all relationships are? They are a mirror, because we're all here to heal each other. That's, I believe, one of our purposes. And so I believe that if we feel into our own energy to decide what practitioner we're working with, for example, whatever decision we're making, that if we get that innate, like, hell yeah, that feels good to me. Like I felt like that way when I was, working with Kathy Heller, that it was just like, don't even have to think about it. It's like, I just really want to be here. And then you find that there are very good reasons for that. So one of them can be that mirror. So holding space for each other becomes really simple. And being able to, and in that mirror, you see the real you, that your own ability to be able to heal yourself, because that's an important thing for people to wake up to, their own power.
Yeah, I love that. Have you experienced and where you're working with somebody, and like, we'll use Kathy because she's pretty well known, and I just absolutely love her myself, right? And she's really focused on her bigger vision, of empowering us to go and shine our lights, and was really the inspiration for me to launch my podcast, messy as it has been at times, but to continually shine my light and for you to shine your light. And when we collectively shine our light, that, why can't you go after your dreams? And that belief, I always say it's like the belief, I believe in you, you know, and until you can have that belief in yourself, I'm going to believe in you. And so
that's
you
important.
you believe in me, but you're learning how to believe in yourself and going
Right.
after what you want. And I have found too, as you do more work and as we continue to do work, I don't think we're ever done because life continues to happen, is that we all start lifting each other up and serving each other. And that is our lesson, I feel like, to learn here, that we're here to serve each other and to help each other lift you up. Maybe you're going through a rough patch and I'm maybe today I'm having a great day. And so I'm going to lift you up. And now tomorrow, maybe I'm kind of like feeling the feels and you're like, hey, Deb, thinking about you today. Here's a little emoji, right? It can be so simple, but yet so impactful. I think it brings me into the idea too, the belief with like thinking about the book that you talked about, The Untethered Soul. It's been some time ago that I read that book, but really about the words that we choose to put out with each other, how we show up with people. Like I'm sure as you were serving people, their caffeinated part of their day, right? That you might be the only person who smiled at them today.
Yeah. And that's the space, right? That's the space that we have to hold for each other. Anybody can do this for everyone, just to be able to see them. Just by being seen allows you to see yourself, right? It allows you to realize like that you're alive and you're not just this zombie going through
Yeah,
all these patterns and getting triggered all day long, because that's what it can feel like sometimes.
yeah, yeah. We have a couple episodes ago. I had on Mary, and we were talking about that whole autopilot.
Yeah. Yes.
How we can
Yeah.
fall into being on autopilot pretty easily, right? And I think we've all experienced where you're working, or maybe you're picking up your kids, and next thing you know, you're home. Like you just drove, or maybe, in some places, maybe people are on the subway, I don't know, but or public transportation, and you realize that you're home.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the day can just go by in a flash, and every day is the same. And every day, like, I know I've gone through points where I would wish, oh, can today be better? Can things be more exciting? But so when I finally realized that I created that day, I created the, few years where every day was the same, that's when I was able to step into my power and be able to change the day. And it's not easy. It's a simple concept of being your own control. I don't like the word control, but stepping into your power and creating the day that you want, right? Which when you create many days, it becomes the life that you want. But that autopilot is unconsciousness, I think, right? And so when we become conscious about what's happening, it becomes difficult because now we have to see all the moving parts of how we created the day to day, and that can be really confusing to us, right? There's difficult, it's painful, but the concept is simple: see it, hold it, right, and question it, and then you can change it in that awareness is everything.
Oh, I so agree. The awareness. I had a sister who, unfortunately, battled addiction, and
Mm.
we lost her over 10 years ago now, right? She made it to like age 40. But there was this period of time in, many years ago where I think I was in my mid, I was in my mid 30s, I think. And she was about 30ish and early 30s. And she had three young boys. I had my son. And I remember her and I sitting on my conversation. I had bought my first place, my first town home and in the Bay Area. And I was just so excited for that 903 square feet, right? That was all to me, an unmarried woman. And
Hmm.
I remember us sitting in there and she had been clean for about 6 months during this period of time. And we had this conversation and she's like, the one thing about not numbing, right, and looking at her own pattern was that she could now see, like she had woke up and she could see what had happened, right? Like, and she had to make that choice. She stayed clean for about another 6 months. But in the end, she found it was too difficult to look at those patterns.
It's so difficult. Yeah.
And so I think about the listeners, right? If they're really struggling in a pattern, right? And patterns are tough. We all have experienced them. I've experienced them, but I stepped forward into my pattern and needed to walk through the muck, the how the patterns had affected other relationships, how it affected myself, all the choices I have made. And so if somebody's in that, right, maybe they've become aware, they see that they're in this pattern, right? Like I'm not very fulfilled. What would you, if you had to give them one or two simple ways of even saying, is this right? Or what would be a simple, or not that it's so simple to get out of a pattern, but the question is more along the lines of, what can they do to take those baby steps to begin to look at? Because I think of my sister and I think, wow, she was so strong. She was the smartest one of all my siblings, right? So bright. She had such a bright future, but she could never get out of that whole cycle of the pattern. And, I don't know if you know people who have struggled with different patterns of addiction's a really big pattern, or eating or gambling, but if there was a one or two small things that they could start to do to help themselves when you become aware, would you
Yeah.
have any suggestions for them, Victoria?
So, speaking to addiction, that I won't go there. I have very close family members who have dealt with addiction,
Oh,
and
okay. Sorry, I did not know that.
no, 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 it's okay. I'm thinking out loud, like, that if I were ever to say anything to them, I have no idea what it's like to be so stuck in the suffering. I will never presume to make pretend that I know what that's like. So that I can imagine is really deep suffering. But I know what it's like to have the moments of what it might feel like to be truly addicted, to have these patterns come up in my life. I see that. And it took a really, really long time for me to get to the point where I didn't feel like a prisoner to those emotions. Um, and so for myself, because I think I can only speak for myself, and I will only teach what I feel like I have at least practiced myself and saw that it worked, if not mastering at some point. But I see that so I was mentioning alignment before. So that to me is the biggest factor in my success in not falling into those bad habits. So whether it's eating too much or like eating is a big thing for me at night when I'm stressed out. So I find if I look back to that day, if I didn't drink enough water, if I was so again, awareness, if I lost my awareness of how to take care of my physical body. So I know that I need to drink a lot of water during the day. I know now that I need to continue running until my knees fall off. A run for me, I was diagnosed with ADHD as a teenager, and a run, it, it helps balance out my brain. I don't know the science behind it, but it really, really helps me. If I don't meditate during the day, if I don't do my grounding practice by literally putting my body on the earth for some period of time, so I like to take my work outside, or use a grounding mat. Um, if I don't do those practices, I'm out of alignment, out of balance. And so when I'm out of balance, I will go and stuff my emotions down with food. Some people do it with shopping, some people do it with alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever it is. I believe that um, as as some people go deeper with that, and they have a harder time getting out of it than others. But I believe that there are moments, if we are in that habit at some point, there are moments where I'm questioning it, but I'm guessing that there are moments where we go as deep as each other. Like it gets as difficult can be, but sometimes we can get out of it faster. I don't know why. Maybe it's that our physical alignment is, um, we're able to take care of our physical body more. I don't know the answer to that, but for me, the better I take care of my physical body, the more my mind is taken care of. The more my mind is in balance, I'm able to break those habits more and more. I could step out of it more easily.
Oh, I love the example that you give with stuffing the emotions with the food, because that's something that I've have become very much aware of. And the hydration, the water, and the key point that doing, um, the self care, right? Like I think some people think of self care too as, it's just getting our nails done or eyelashes or, massage. Massage I think is great for self care too, but it's um, it's so much more than that. Understanding what is, you're almost doing like your own cause and effect, right? You're going back and you're like, okay, why am I feeling this? Okay, oh look, I didn't drink enough water today. Oh, I wasn't grounded, and so I wasn't able to go back into where I want my own self to be.
Right.
So those are some really good, I think, really good ways for people to take a look at themselves, right? Something as simple as drinking water, right?
Drinking water. Oh yeah. So you'll hear, I'm sure you know this, I've heard many energy healers say that they need to drink loads of water. Like I know somebody who drinks like 160-ish ounces of water a day. I definitely don't. I probably should because I drink too much caffeine. But I find that, so our body is all, it's almost all energy, right? 99 point something percent energy, and most of our body is made of water. Water is a pure, um, well, right? Is it a pure energy unless it's frozen, right? Frozen water is that pure crystalline energy. And so if we're not replenishing that high vibrational state in us in water, we will be depleted. And so that stress, it affects our physical body by affecting our nervous system. And when our nervous system is imbalanced, we go into the heightened fight or flight mode. And without getting too convoluted into the science, it triggers too much. And so all of a sudden we're out of our mind. We're literally out of our mind. So getting our bodies back into balance, I feel like is numero uno. It's very key.
Yeah, yeah. I can attest to any day that I've struggled with my water intake. It was a big awareness to have stumbled upon it. First, I thought it was just a different, um, oh, it's nice. I know I wake up or I'm thirsty, but I really noticed it my first awareness of it was when I had walked, when I lived out in Colorado, I walked in the Denver Avon 2-day uh, breast cancer awareness, 39 miles, right? So it's a marathon and a half basically, and it's walking. It's not, and so Denver is very high elevation, and so I was training in that environment, and the first time I did it, I ended up. I think I got. Um, I made a really good progress. I didn't finish the first day though, because I ended up in the med tent for hydration.
Mm.
And because I wasn't aware of what hydration symbols or what's the word I'm looking for? The signs that you're already dehydrated. I hadn't realized, like, if you're thirsty, you're already way
You're
dehydrated,
dehydrated,
right?
right?
And it
Yeah.
really shows up in our skin, and there's just so many ways, right? And so as I trained for the second year, I really realized, like, wow, like the amount of hydration that I needed to take, even the foods I was eating as I prepared myself. The second year I did it, I had moved back to the Bay Area, to California, and ended up finishing in, like the higher percentage of as I walked across the Golden Gate Bridge. Wow, that's quite an experience too. But the hydration was not a factor because it took something so painful, being dehydrated in a med tent is really not an experience I would wish on anybody. But it really brought that awareness of what hydration really did look like in my body for me to identify it for myself. And so understanding what that looks like for us, and I think like there's like an equation to figure out. It's not the 8 glasses of eight or 8 of the 8 ounces, right? It's like take your body weight in half and divide it. And I think that's like
Yeah.
pretty high. There's another part of the equation there. I
Yeah.
know that I have to drink crazy amounts of water. Otherwise, it really does impact my day.
Yeah, because you still need to consider what you're eating, what you ate the day before, because your body can still be trying to get back into equilibrium, taking water from your body. So if you had like a salty Chinese food meal the night before and you're drinking a load of water the next day, you might still feel thirsty because you're literally so dehydrated. You have so much sodium in your body. So I don't adhere to that eight, what is it, like I think of Oprah saying 10 glasses a day or something. For me, it's certainly more. Like right now,
Mhm.
I've got my coffee cup and I have my water cup because
Yeah, yeah,
because if
my
I'm just
water cup.
drinking this, yeah,
Yep.
I've got to balance it out at the same time because then I'll forget that after I drink so much coffee, I have to drink at least twice that much water and maybe even more. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That was really. I hope somebody finds some benefit in that too, right? Of understanding how we find our own patterns and what the big ones, but all of these small ones really add up. The hydration. I know I'm kind of drilling in on that, but I think it's something that for people to actually look at and say, oh, how much fluids, how much water am I actually providing my body, and to even test it, right? Try it for 7 days. Does it make a difference in how
right.
you
Just give
are,
it a try. Yeah.
your whole environment? So yeah, well,
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to do this practice, whether it's water drinking or meditation. You don't have to say, okay, I'm going to do this every day now for 6 months. Just give it a try. If you're skeptical about it and you hear somebody saying that it worked for them, you could just see how you feel. Because if you're at the point where you're looking for a practice, you're looking for something to make you feel better, then you're already saying, okay, I need something to help me out here. So just giving it a try, you could see, maybe it'll work and maybe it doesn't, because I think that any alignment practice is that it's different for everybody. And just for anyone listening, if they don't know what I mean by alignment, because it took me a while to really understand what that word meant. I remember that coming through my channel. I do intuitive writing, and that would come through, and I had no idea what that meant. All of a sudden, I was hearing it everywhere, And so to me, alignment um, is balancing the physical body and the mind, so that the mind is the physical body with the spiritual, right? Because that's who we are. It's our we are a soul having a human experience. At this point, it's a very trite way to say it, but we are energetically a soul, and if we are not balancing out the energy of our body, we're not going to be able to hear our intuition, be able to live through our soul, be our soul in that body, right? Have our body be the vehicle. So these physical practices are really, really important. And so I would say, like, for anybody who is dealing with a lot of pain and feeling, I don't mean just physical pain, but emotional pain, or feeling foggy headed all day and just feeling like they can't move past the struggles that they're dealing with, take care of that physical body, right? Eat different food, eat whole foods, drink more water, get out into nature, do grounding practices. Meditation, you don't have to call it meditation if you don't want to. I call it getting quiet, just really being able to sit with yourself, however, you can want to do that, whether it's gardening, golfing, whatever it is. There's so many ways of really, it's aligning our body and feeling into what needs to come up and get out, right?
Yeah, that is such good practical advice, Victoria.
Thank you.
It's it feels so basic. It might sound so basic, but it's so, so powerful.
We forget. And it's easy. I don't blame anybody. I don't blame
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, no judgments.
It's a crazy world. And there's too many pressures in this life. And I think the pressures are getting greater. And it's really easy to forget ourselves and to forget what's important to us, especially when now we're adults and we don't have parents looking out for us, if we ever did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so even at that point, for anybody who really never had that support and you have to learn it all over again, give yourself grace, give yourself grace and forgive yourself. That, I feel like, is a really important practice, because when you can give yourself grace and forgiveness, then you can do it for others. But if you're not doing it for yourself, it becomes really difficult to expect yourself to do that. So, and that's where shame comes in, and that's a whole other story.
Oh yeah, the lowest vibrating energy out there, right? Shame and guilt. Oh, it's so. Yeah. We want to help people walk through and not go there. Yeah. So, or go there if they have for a moment, just so that they can pop back up and release it. Yeah. So, so important, Victoria. Thank you so much. Now, if somebody is really interested in reaching out to you, how can they find you?
So I have a website called Dear Intuition. You could look for me at dearintuition.com. You could look for me. I hang out on Instagram a lot. So my IG handle is victoria.fontana. And so, yeah, I would say Instagram. And for now, the website until I say I don't want to pay for it anymore. And I'll try. I would say Instagram is number one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is wonderful, and I really hope that somebody reaches out to you and gets, a little bit of this goodness that we've shared, and maybe they're looking for an accountability partner to help them with taking a look at their own patterns and helping them.
Absolutely.
Get rid of that. So thank you so much, Victoria.
You're welcome. This was fun. Thank you.